Good evening.
And good evening.
How are you, sir?
I am fairly well.
Good.
I'm warmer than I was earlier this week. Terribly cold.
I'm enjoying the cold.
I know. It troubles me.
I'm still wearing shorts and flip-flops.
Worries me about you. We met for lunch. Was it Monday?
Monday. It was Monday.
And coldest day of the year. Wind chill factor was.
Was it really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know.
45 degrees, 20 mile an hour wind off the Gulf.
I walk into Sweet Southern. Ronnie is all bundled up. He's got his scarf on.
I did.
He looks at me and is like, if I would have bet that you would have showed up wearing shorts and a hoodie.
Shorts and a hoodie. Flip-flops.
He's like, I would have won.
Yeah, that was you.
It's true. That was me.
I was like, it's not that bad.
It's not. It's
not.
not.
That's what happens when you're from Iowa and Nebraska and live in
coats
Kansas. And
coats are optional until it actually reaches, like 10 degrees or so.
Oh, not me. I'm looking for a coat at 60. So,
hey, Sarah. We have Sarah Brunson and Victoria Hunt and Noel.
There's Carolyn Mullins, Nathan Kelly.
Noel is with his mother June.
Oh, good.
So we have Peggy, extra company.
Patty, a good crew that's joined us this evening. We'll be getting started here shortly. We got a few housekeeping things before we jump into the study. We want to check on our sound to make sure you can hear us okay. We have a great deal of volume control, so we can send a lot more if you're having trouble hearing us. But if you're okay, we're okay.
I'm okay. I can hear you just fine.
Oh, good.
I have no issues.
I'm glad to hear.
All right, so a couple housekeeping things for you. I received an email from Carita earlier today. If you don't remember,
who is Carita?
Carita works for the Guardian Ad Litem.
That's right.
Yeah, she's a trainer. She also works with the kids. She's a jack of all trades, really. But she was on about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago tops. No, it was less than that. It was about a month ago. Yeah. So she was on about a month ago, and she shared about Guardian Ad Litem and what they do. So if you listen to that, fantastic. Here's some information for you. But if you did not watch that, you need to go back and watch it. It's on YouTube, on a Simple Faith Church YouTube page. But next week, they are having an informational meeting on Tuesday, February 9th at 10 a.m. That's Central Standard Time. And you can meet virtually from your computer or phone or tablet. And that link, I have that there for you. And we'll post that later in the comment section after this is over. Or you can dial in on your phone, 1-866-899-4679, and use the access code 377-233-029.
That's a GoToMeeting application. So if you have a GoToMeeting app already on your phone or laptop or mobile device, that'll make it a little easier on you. And if only we had known to invest in Zoom and GoToMeeting a year ago.
I know, man. I'll do that here on the screen for just a second or so longer in case you guys are writing it down. But once again, informational meeting next Tuesday, 10 a.m. And the link is right there. We'll post that in the comments after this is done. So that'll be there. Or you can contact me via my email at garrettbq@gmail.com. Secondly, The next day, Wednesday.
I have to interrupt just a second.
Do it.
And thank you once again for creating an email that's legible and transferable.
Yeah, you didn't like Go McHugh?
Go McHugh at lincolnchristian.edu.fart. Whatever. It was just going on forever, man.
Whenever I got a school email, I was just like, I'm sending everything to that, and it's just a hassle to get everything switched over.
Until they turned it off.
Yeah, until they turned it off. But yes, anyway, next Wednesday, there's a morning Bible study. They are studying the book of 2 Corinthians. That will begin next Wednesday at 10 a.m. You can join via Zoom. Contact Deb Riccatelli at drick0915@yahoo.com.
Riccatelli. She comes to me. She asks me this question. It's insulting. You know what I'm saying?
Anyway, it's my Godfather routine.
Also, Yuval.
Yuval, yeah, a little bit of Yuval.
Who is Yuval?
Oh my goodness. Is that it? Is that all
That's
your
it.
housekeeping items?
Those are my housekeeping announcements.
Come Sunday, we'll be back here at 11 o'clock. Or I won't be here. Garrett will be here at 11 o'clock broadcasting our service. We will assess how things are for the first Sunday of March.
Yeah.
And see where we are as far as COVID numbers and safety, keeping everybody safe and well. We've come a year. We're so close to things improving. I think by summertime, so much of this will be behind us. But I think throughout the remainder of winter and spring, it can be still a little touchy to go.
I'd love to hit the summer months and be back in person, but at the same time,
relaxing.
It'll be nice to get this behind us when this is all
It will be. So that's Sunday. I do want to remind folks that for the study on Wednesday evenings, we will be gathering all these resources at the end of our study and posting them. So those will be available for download and listening in the weeks to come. Just to let folks know that. I have had a couple folks ask me about the sermon from Sunday. It's not posted yet. Our dear friend Bobby Raines takes care of that for us, and Bobby has really been under the gun.
He really has.
His mom and dad both have had recent cancer diagnoses. His dad's doing a little bit better. His mom's been taking treatment and been doing well. And then the whole family got COVID. And now his mom has had a heart attack and been back and forth from hospital to rehab center and finally this week at home. So Bobby's been a little busy. Yeah. So we're not holding any grudges about him extracting an audio for Sunday.
I mean, this goes without saying. He does a lot for us behind the scenes. I've had to step in for him when he's been gone on Sunday, and it's not easy to do that. And he's been there every Sunday.
I know it. Doing the sound. Our little Sunday crew, and you can say a prayer for all of them. Garrett and Bobby and Sarah and Nick and Tim and Ricky and now Justin.
Yeah, and Justin.
They've all had it. I mean, it's been not just 2020. The new year's been rough.
How have we I don't know how we've avoided it. Maybe we've been anointed.
Don't say that. Don't say that. I don't know.
Knock on wood.
Any of those things. But all right. Carolyn Mullen says she is frozen. Like, are you cold or like your screen is frozen? Let's check our stream. Anybody else can chime in right here. Let us know if you are receiving the signal. Okay.
You're good here.
I'm good here internally. So.
We got peace sign from Charlene.
Peace sign from Charlene. So anybody else want to just give us a comment and
the peace sign means very good.
I will say that if you watch traditionally on a laptop instead of a mobile device, Facebook's having some troubles these days.
That's true.
With laptops and with the desktop computers, doing much better with mobile devices. Well, Carolyn, we hope you come back around here and rejoin us. I'm gonna get started in the study tonight. Okay, Noel, thank you. He's good there. So hopefully we're gonna be in good shape. Patty's good. Okay, we're gonna rock on. What did we learn from last week? The week of the return in the book of Ruth. We met two of the three main characters of this book. Hey, Gary Hedges. Hey, Victoria Hunt. Hey, Nancy Gross. Thank you all for chiming in right there. We met two of the three main characters of this book, and we met several ancillary characters. They're ancillary characters because they didn't last long. in the story. God love them. Garrett, who is Naomi?
She's bitter.
She is bitter.
She's the mother-in-law. She's the mother-in-law who has virtually lost everything. She left her hometown. Her husband died. Her sons died. She's left with her two daughter-in-laws. As of last week, she was left with her two daughters-in-law, and they set out for Bethlehem, the house of bread.
Right.
After learning that God had restored the land, or restored, I forgot the exact phrase, but things were good there, and she was in Moab.
And she is with one of those daughter-in-laws, Ruth. So tell us about Ruth, Garrett.
Ruth is,
see if you were paying attention.
Man, Ruth is the namesake of this whole thing. She's the daughter-in-law. I couldn't tell you who she was married to. I can't remember which one she was married to.
Kelly or Mylon. I don't know.
Either the weakling or the
weakling or destruction. That's right.
One of the ones that died, unfortunately. But yeah, Ruth is a Moabite woman, which we're told about often in this book.
Right.
And I think that's worth noting, is this book references Ruth the Moabite all the time to make you remember she's a foreigner, she's a woman, she's a widower.
She's got a lot of strikes against her.
A lot of strikes against her.
And yet everywhere you look in this book, she's also a picture of strength and grace and gratitude, which is also repeated over and over again in this book as well. We do know that Naomi loses everything. We know that she and her family lived during the time of the judges. We learned that last week. Her name was pleasant. When she returned to Bethlehem, as you were saying, Garrett, she asked that her former friends call her Mara, which means bitter. Verse 13 from chapter 1, she said, "The Lord himself has raised his fist against me." So she was holding God responsible, and if there's any doubt about that, when she finally does get back to Bethlehem after a 20-year sojourn, losing her husband, losing her sons, she says, God Almighty has made me bitter.
He's brought misfortune upon me, is what the NIV says.
The God who is all-powerful, El Shaddai, has caused this to take place. And so there's no doubt about how she feels about things. And I want to emphasize that tonight. That is chapter 1 ended. She's not happy with her lot in life and the things that have occurred to her. But we are told in the midst of all of this that Ruth clings tightly to Naomi. And this is the money text for the book of Ruth. Ruth chapter 1 verses 16 and 17. But Ruth replied, speaking to Naomi, "Don't ask me to leave you or turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Wherever you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord punish me severely if I allow anything but death to separate us." And it says that when she clung to her mother-in-law, it's the same word used in Genesis: a man shall leave his mother and father and cling to his wife, as it goes. And we were talking about last week about it's almost like a little child hugging your legs. You take a step and they wrap themselves around you and won't let you go on. That's what Ruth was doing. And it is also a religious conversion. That same verse there, and I'll just add in the Hebrew words for God that Ruth uses. She says, "Your people will be my people, and your God," and she uses the word Elohim, which is a generic word for God, "will be my Elohim." Generic God. Wherever you go, I will go. I already got that part. I will die, there I will be buried. And then she says, may Yahweh, may the Lord Yahweh, the proper name for God, punish me severely if I allow anything but death to separate us. So Ruth invokes the name of the Hebrew God. Ruth invokes the name of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. And in a sense, immediately there on the road from her hometown, forsakes the gods of her nation, forsakes the gods of her own upbringing, and makes this religious commitment. So chapter 1 comes to a close. They have returned to Bethlehem. That is Naomi and Ruth. Everyone else is gone. And it's late in the spring, or maybe late in the spring. It could be early in the spring, and we'll talk about why it could be either of those. The barley harvest is coming in. Grain and bread and food have returned to Bethlehem, and we are introduced to this third major character in our drama, the Redeemer. And his name is Boaz. So let's read the text. Verses 1 through 7 tonight is where we begin. And verse 1 is complete foreshadowing. And then verse 2, we get into the happenings of chapter 2. Verse 1, now there was a wealthy and influential man in Bethlehem named Boaz, who was a relative of Naomi's husband, Elimelech. And remember, Elimelech means God is king. So Elimelech, they're always naming people based on circumstances. Elimelech was born in a time of greater prosperity than his own children were. One day, Ruth the Moabite, there it is, Garrett, said to Naomi, let me go out into the harvest fields to pick up the stalks of grain left behind by anyone who is kind enough to let me do it. Naomi replied, all right, my daughter, go ahead. So Ruth went out to gather grain. I got a tickle on my nose, back of my throat. Sorry. To gather grain behind the harvesters. And as it happened, she found herself working in a field that belonged to Boaz, the relative of her father-in-law Elimelech. While she was there, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. The Lord be with you, he said. The Lord bless you, the harvesters replied. Then Boaz asked his foreman, who is that young woman over there? Who does she belong to? And the foreman replied, she is the young woman from Moab who came back with Naomi. She asked me this morning if she could gather grain behind the harvesters. She has been hard at work ever since, except for a few minutes rest in the shelter. There he is, Boaz. Got a slide here for you about those names. Naomi means pleasant. So again, Naomi was born during pleasant days in comparison to her children. Mara, as she returns to Bethlehem, and the name that she chooses to take when she returns 20 years later, means bitter. Ruth means friend. And I don't know if I mentioned that in the past. I don't think I did. Great namesake and very appropriate for Ruth. It can also mean committed. Do you remember what Boaz means? We talked about it a couple weeks ago. We think that Boaz means strength. Now, it can mean speed, swiftness. But as we were saying a few weeks ago, one of the major pillars upon which the temple foundation is built has Boaz inscribed. My wife just texted me and it popped up on my screen. Sorry about that. That's why I got
Sunstrikes is about to pop up in there too. I accidentally pushed the wrong button.
Okay, that's all right. It's all right. Boaz means strength. A foundation, someone who is strong, and certainly that's the case in the book of Ruth as to describe Boaz, because we find him here as a strong, capable, faithful, integrity-driven man who is the elder in this town of Bethlehem, and more so, he is kin to Naomi's late husband, and as such, he'll have an important part to play. We'll talk about that. You got it, Nancy. We're unfroze over there at Nancy too. Nancy, we think that's an issue on Facebook's side with some of their platforms because everything is streaming great here. And thanks, Pamela, for letting us know that I did mention that. I didn't know for sure if I had done that. But before we jump into Boaz, in this section of text, we have to go to Ruth. She heads out to the fields to pick up the stalks of grain left behind by anyone who is kind enough to let me do it, she says. So there are two kinds of grain, and I got a slide here for you in case you don't know what this is. Most of us aren't farmers anymore. Two kinds of grain that would have grown in Israeli soil, planted in the winter, harvested in the spring. As it matured, and their winters are nothing like, their winters are more like Florida winters, if that severe, in in Israel. In Israel, there's only one place that gets snow, and that's up at Mount Hebron, way in the north. Yeah. And so most of it is a desert climate. So you've got a picture there before you of the two crops that were harvested in biblical times. On the left there is the wheat, the woolly wheat with all the little, all the fuzzies on it. And then on the right is the barley. The barley came in first. And that's why it's important in this text that she's going out to participate in the barley harvest. So it's the first fruits. It's the first crop to come in, not the latter one. Mm-hmm. But no barley could be eaten, Garrett McHugh, until after. No fresh barley could be taken from the field and eaten until after the festival of unleavened bread.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and the festival of unleavened bread dates all the way back to the time of Egypt. When the children of Israel were being delivered from Egypt, mm-hmm. and Moses was bringing them out of Egypt and out across, split the Red Sea and into the desert, and eventually, years later, into the Promised Land, the custom installed that night was, don't put any yeast in the bread.
Right.
Because it doesn't have time to rise. We're getting the heck out of Dodge. Mm-hmm. So it's a flat bread. It's like a pita bread.
Yeah.
And
put some hummus on.
Put some hummus on, and it's good. It really is.
It's amazing.
and so the festival of unleavened bread marked that time of redemption. The feast of unleavened bread ended on Passover.
Okay.
So in the New Testament, when Jesus sends the disciples into Jerusalem to find a place to eat the Last Supper, they're mm-hmm. celebrating the days of unleavened bread before the day of Passover arrives. Mm-hmm. So because we know this, we can almost pinpoint, if we knew the exact year, we could pinpoint it exactly on a calendar. We don't know the exact year that this takes place.
Right.
But all of this takes place after the days of unleavened bread and after Passover. In the Hebrew calendar, Nisan is the month of Passover. And Passover begins on the first full moon after the spring equinox.
Gotcha.
So find the spring equinox, and it's that way to this day. Mm-hmm. 3,000 years later after these events. Find the spring equinox, the balance of days. Then find the first full moon. And that first full moon is Passover. And that's how we date Easter. It's why Easter moves. And so Passover and these events that we read about here in the book of Ruth could have occurred any time in mid-March to late April, depending upon where the lunar cycle was at the time. The barley harvest would have come in immediately thereafter. The day after Passover, they could have started bringing in the barley. It would have lasted a month or so, or maybe even 2 months, depending on the size of the crop, mm-hmm. and extend into early May. So we know this is sometime between mid-March to mid-May. We also know that, according to chapter 1, the harvest is just arriving.
Right.
So this is right after Passover.
Gary had pita and hummus today.
Oh, did he?
Well,
it's a very good choice.
It's a very good timing.
Very good. So how are these grains harvested? With a sickle. I've got a great picture for you here of a sickle that was actually recovered in a tomb in Egypt. And this would have dated, this particular sickle dates to the time of Ruth, because it is late Bronze Age, maybe early Iron Age. Now, keep the slide up. I want you to see it here.
So if you have two sickles, do you have a bicycle?
And that's it, folks. We'll be signing off now. You got dad jokes, and you're way too young for that. You're way too young for dad jokes. If you look at the slide, looking at your far left-hand side is the handle. Mm-hmm. And this particular one is just completely smooth from being held in a harvester's hand. You can see what looks like two teeth there in the curve. That is flint. By the way, this particular sickle is in the British Museum of Art. and that's Egyptian hieroglyphics down at the bottom. But this is what a harvesting tool looked like in Ruth's day. You could move forward a little bit if you get past David into the early Iron Age, then they convert to copper to iron, that sort of thing, and they might have even inlaid this with a little copper, but no iron during Ruth's days. And you would swing this thing at the base of the stalks.
Right.
Growing up in the South, it would be a sling blade. Did you have a sling blade?
No, I've seen the movie.
It's a great movie. Great movie. A little violent, but it's a great movie. But
we had one actually.
Yeah, we would trim up some of the really wild grassy areas along a ditch or something with a sling blade, briars and things like that. And the times that I've been to El Salvador over the years, that you can go out into the countryside in summertime, and they still harvest sugar cane by hand.
Oh yeah.
And so men and women would be out there, and they make about $1 a day. It's hard work with a machete, but it's the same concept. You hold the sugar cane here, and you're whacking as low to the ground as you can get, so that you don't lose any of the
good stuff.
The good stuff. I've got one more sickle that I want to show you here real quick. This is not. This is a reproduction. This sickle was made recently, not years ago, but it is based on the sickle as a weapon, which was also used during the time of Ruth and the time of the judges. This was also this sickle here would also have been used during Ruth's day, and if you look really close, you'll see that it's obviously a jawbone of some animal. The molars have been left in place, and then they have carved out the edge to make it sharp on the end. And the worker would take that by its handle and swing it just like they would the wooden sickle. Mm-hmm. The book of Judges, again, the same time in which Ruth and Naomi lived, tells us that Samson, by his own account, killed 1,000 Philistines, killed an entire army. He's sort of like this Hercules figure anyway. Big, strong guy with the jawbone of a donkey. And you read that as a kid and you're like, what the heck?
And then you see
that picture there is what he would have been wielding. He would have been using a sickle as a weapon against his
So he was a farmer.
Well, they were all farmers. No, but they were all farmers during that time, and that was a common implement to have. So the barley is cut off low to the ground, then it's tied together in sheaves. I got another picture for you. These are actually modern day sheaves. I snagged this picture off the internet for you a couple days ago. These sheaves are in Northern Europe at a reproduction farm of what it would have been like to farm in the early Middle Ages. And these are actually barley sheaves. And you tie them up and prop them up together like that. Think of hay bales in a field. It's the same concept. You pile it up, you bind these things together, and then the sheaves would have been gathered together and carried en masse to a threshing floor. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. Mm-hmm. So what if you'll continue, bring that slide back for just a second. If you look at that field where those sheaves are, Ruth has gone into the field to collect any of the barley that is still laying on the ground, that hasn't been collected and bundled. Now in Leviticus, that's good. In Leviticus 19, Leviticus 23, and I think 24, the Mosaic law says to the people of Israel, if they have a field like that and they're harvesting, do not harvest the edges. Mm-hmm. Right. Leave the edges of the field for the poor and for the travelers. It was a way of providing some economic subsistence, a support system for poor people and people traveling, because you didn't just, you didn't have McDonald's. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. There's no McDonald's. There's no refrigeration. And so people traveling would walk into a field, grab off a head of barley, kind of grind it up in their hands to get to the grain. If they're not stopping, they eat that grain directly, or they can roast it over a fire or grind it and make bread. In the New Testament, Jesus' disciples, Jesus was with them, creates this huge scandal with the Pharisees on the Sabbath day. And I can't remember the exact location of the text, and that's a challenge. Anybody that's listening right now, go find it in the New Testament. They're traveling, and the disciples reach out and they're picking heads of grain. Mm-hmm. Some old translations call it corn. It would have been wheat or barley.
Right.
And they're harvesting, and the Pharisees in their fundamentalism said, "Hey, you're harvesting on the Sabbath,
breaking
the law." But what they were doing was reaching into the edge of a field, a practice that was still in place 1,000 years or more after this one, to pick those heads of grain and to eat them. And this says a lot about the kind of society they were trying to develop. I mean, we wouldn't do that, We wouldn't, intentionally leave some money behind, intentionally leave some resources behind.
Leave food out on my porch.
Leave some food out so poor folks and traveling folks can have access to it. We wouldn't do that. But in this society, that's what they were attempting to do.
Quick question. So, this is really, interesting looking at these verses. So Ruth, does she know? And I mean, she says to Naomi, "I'm going to go out and harvest." I mean, I've been to Bethlehem. It's, back then you don't have a ton of fields. Most of it's, obviously commercialized and whatnot today. So the fact that she ended up in Boaz's field, is it providence? Is it happenstance?
Well, it's just that's where we are in the text. Yeah. The text says, "And so it happened."
So it happened.
Which I love like this.
There you go.
Huh. You get the foreshadowing of verse number 1, just to let you know that Ruth's going to end up in Boaz's field.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Providence, luck, fate. Say what you. Hey, Seth, we love you too. Say what you will about that. What's as compelling to me though is that Boaz notices her.
Right.
This is a wealthy man. This is an influential man. He shows up and he's like, "Who is that?"
What's really interesting too, I noticed this in a study earlier when I was researching that, the men were the ones that usually cut the grain, mm-hmm. and then the women would come behind to gather the sheaves, and then foreigners or widowers, lepers,
the sick,
or the fatherless,
yes,
they would be the ones left behind. So in my mind, it's almost as if Boaz shows up and he goes, "Okay, that woman she's either a foreigner, she's either a widow, or she's fatherless. She's vulnerable, is what it is. She's extremely vulnerable." Right. And he notices her. But he also pops up and says, what does he say again? Let me look here. He says something to the...
I think it's in the text that we're just about to read, in verses 8 through 16. Because he notices her, and it's the foreman.
The Lord be with you, is what he says. The Lord be with you.
Right. The Lord be with you.
Which tells you he's a person of good standing.
Well, they have all this great exchange. He calls out to his workers, "The Lord be with you." Shalom.
And also with you.
Yeah, shalom, shalom. It's all going on here. Let's pick up there at verses 8 through 16 because it picks up very well with what you're saying. So Boaz now knows who she is. Now he may have known her story, but now he's laid eyes on her. And so we pick up at verse 8. Boaz went over and said to Ruth, "Listen, my daughter. Stay right here with us when you gather grain. Don't go to any other fields. Stay right behind the young women working in my field." There's exactly what you were saying.
Right.
So the men are cutting down the stalks, the women are gathering it and tying it, and then I hate to use the word, but the oddballs, the outcasts, the poor, the weak,
the expendables.
No, that's right. See which part of the field they are harvesting and then follow them. I have warned the young men not to treat you roughly. And when you are thirsty, help yourself to the water they have drawn from the well. Ruth fell at his feet and thanked him warmly. "What have I done to deserve such kindness?" she asked. "I am only a foreigner." I know, Boaz replied, but I also know, and here it comes. Here's this great indication of Ruth's integrity as a person. I also know about everything you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. I have heard how you left your father and mother in your own land to live here among complete strangers. May the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge, reward you fully for what you have done. And she says, I hope to continue to please you, sir. You have comforted me by speaking so kindly to me, even though I am not one of your workers. At mealtime, Boaz called to her, Come over here and help yourself to some food. You can dip your bread in the sour wine. So she sat with his harvesters, and Boaz gave her some roasted grain to eat. She ate all she wanted and still had some left over. When Ruth went back to work again, Boaz ordered his young men, let her gather grain right among the sheaves without stopping her, and pull out some heads of barley from the bundles and drop them on purpose for her. Let her pick them up and don't give her a hard time. Now, you don't have to be a Harlequin reader to understand what's happening right here. And if you are not a romantic, if you're just some hard-hearted sourpuss, you still have to recognize how beautiful this encounter is. Boaz, again, a powerful man by the standards of the day, a wealthy man, an elder in the village. And we know this. Let's just say it. Powerful and wealthy people don't have to be nice.
That's true.
They don't have to be nice. They don't stand in need. They don't need anything from other people. He's genuinely kind.
Right.
Now, does he have ulterior romantic motives? I doubt it. Because there's probably 20 years between them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
He sees her as a young woman who is honorable and doing a very good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Her father-in-law was his relative, so there's some sentimentality there, an emotional connection. He knows certainly who Naomi is. He would have felt compassion for her here, obviously, as well. And so I think this is driven by just altruistic motives. It's not being creepy or anything like that.
Like, who's
and he
that?
tells her to stay in this field, stay under his protection. Now think about if you're Ruth, even if you don't go back, 3,200 years to envision her story. She's probably 25, 26, 28 years old, because women married in their teens.
Mm-hmm.
So she's young. She's unattached. Everywhere she shows up, she's striking.
Yeah.
She's exotic. She's different because she's not an Israeli. She's from a different country. She stands out.
Right.
And she shows up without a chaperone of any kind. She shows up without any sort of protection. She doesn't have a husband. She doesn't have a son. She's vulnerable.
Right.
She is one of the most vulnerable people in this society as far as someone taking advantage of her.
Right.
To physically abuse her, to sexually abuse her, to essentially enslave her. Mm-hmm. And so when you saw at the beginning of the text how she asked Naomi, let me go out to the fields, it's not because she's bored. They're starving to death. And that's a risk.
Right.
So that's why she asked Naomi, I need to do this. I mean, we need food.
Mm-hmm.
And then it so happens that she ends up under Boaz's protection.
Right.
And it's a beautiful thing here. He knows her story. Of course he does. Scholars say that maybe as few as 100 people lived in Bethlehem.
Everybody knows everybody.
Everybody knows everybody.
They know all your dirt.
They know it. Everybody at the beauty shop and the coffee shop's been talking. They know who she is. I mean, they know exactly who she is. But it's not a bad thing. She has a stellar reputation.
Right. And what this passage too is, it speaks a lot to the character of Boaz. As you mentioned, to not take advantage of the situation. Obviously, he knows what's going on, but it shows his true character when he shows generosity and kindness to this stranger, even though he knows of her situation, and he recognizes that the relational aspect that he has with her through Elimelech. But it's a sense of his true character when he shows up on the scene and he says, "May the Lord be with you." And then towards the end of this, they're sitting down to a meal, which I think is
perfect segue. Before we've already read the text, but isn't it good to see? Now, again, folks, this is as chaotic of a time ever in Hebrew history.
Yeah,
it's the Wild West.
It's right before it gets really interesting.
It's crazy, and there's no central authority. There's no king. There's no police. There's no justice. It's just out of control.
You want law? You are the law.
You are the law. You take it into your own hands. It's very wild, and yet these beautiful people. Because look at Ruth's tenderness and commitment. Mm-hmm. Look at Boaz, his kindness, his grace. These people find each other.
And I hate to restate it, but it's astounding that Ruth left everything she knew, her gods, her family, whatever family she had there.
Well, and Boaz says, "I know you left your father."
Yeah, I know you left it all. You came here to where we have Yahweh.
Yeah,
we do things differently here.
A whole lot different. Yeah.
A whole lot differently, but yeah.
And he does invite her to sit down and eat lunch. It's a big deal. Particularly in the near Middle East, if you shared a table in that society, you were sharing friendship. Now, in our society, back before COVID, if you shared a meal with someone, a lunch, it doesn't necessarily mean friendship. It can be a business deal. It could be
what kind of transactional
right a transactional relationship of some sort, a power play of some sort. To share a meal in this culture is to extend welcome to someone.
Right.
To extend your friendship to them. Now, this is scandalously true again in the New Testament, and I think that Pamela has found our text in Luke chapter 6 verses 1 through 5 about Jesus picking the grain. Thank you, Pamela. But also in the New Testament there, Jesus was forever causing trouble because of who he ate with.
Yep.
How he earned the nickname "friend of sinners" was because he was going to parties.
Isn't that your nickname here in Walton County?
That is my...
Yep, that's it. Luke 6, 1 through 5.
Did y'all hear that? Did you hear what the man just said?
Friend of
sinners.
Hey,
I'll take it. So,
hey, I know a guy.
Friend of sinners was this put down by the religious community,
right?
But it wasn't a put down in Jesus' eyes. He was like, "Well, yeah, these are my friends. They're salty a lot, but they're my friends." And in that Middle Eastern culture, you've been there,
yeah.
or if you've been to a Mediterranean culture, you sit down at that table, you might not get your own plate. You certainly are not going to get your own utensils. You're going to eat from the same bowl. And so it's really an intimate thing. You take that pita bread, dip it in the hummus.
Yep.
With your neighbor.
No, I just want to go back to Israel.
I know
the pita bread and the hummus.
It's such a communal event. Also pick that up and apply it to the Lord's table.
Which just to put this in people's mind, it's not just one. It's not like the painting. Who painted that again? Was that
Leonardo?
It's not the long table that you envision in that. It's more like a U shape. And
they would have all been stacked up together,
stacked up next to each other, sitting on the floor, leaning into the table.
And he says, "The one that dips his hand in the bowl with me." There it is. Mm-hmm. It's this communal event. And then when we recreate the Lord's Supper in our congregations and we break bread and we drink from the cup, by opening the table and saying, "Come," we're extending friendship.
And that's what's happening here.
Right.
She's no longer an outcast. She's no longer other. She's no longer a servant. She's part of this dynamic.
And she's sitting with the harvesters, so she's sitting with the other women. Mm-hmm. It's a dignity issue. She's being treated as an equal.
Yep.
And he says, dip your bread in the sour wine, which would have been a sort of this vinegar and herb thing. Sort of like, right along with you've been to an Italian restaurant. They bring you that olive oil and all those spicy herbs. Oh, it's fantastic.
The luxurious Olive Garden.
Oh, not the Olive Garden.
Noel said it's like us having chips and salsa at Don
Pedro's,
but not double dipping.
No, Noel's mad at me because the last time I had chips and salsa with him at Don Pedro's, I ate all the salsa. But I told him when they brought it, I love this stuff.
He loves salsa.
So if you're gonna get this, you better get after it.
You have to wait. When's your birthday again? September.
October.
I'm terrible.
Long time from now.
October, next October, salsa for this guy.
And then they roast the barley, which sounds like strange to us, but it would have been like quinoa.
Yeah.
In that Mediterranean dish, they would have thrown vegetables and olive oil and olives in with it and tossed it together. She eats that for lunch. She goes back to work. And then I love what Boaz says, leave that girl alone.
Hey, teacher.
Yeah, hey, teacher, leave that kid alone. And he meant it.
Right.
And then this beautiful act of grace of don't just keep her out there at the edges of the field, but she can pick up grain anywhere. In fact, if you've already tied some sheaves together, pull a few of those grain heads out and leave them behind for her. Make sure she gets what she needs. And one more slide there, verse 12. If you are looking for an encouragement on someone's birthday card, if you're looking for artwork for a wall hanging, I've got it for you right here. It begins, may the Lord. If you're looking for a tattoo, this is it. This is a beautiful verse.
Get down on my chest.
It's what Boaz says to Ruth in this conversion that she has made. May the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge, reward you fully for what you have done. Isn't that beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
Love that verse. All this time of studying Ruth, and I think that one had gotten by me. I've been blindsided by the text in chapter 1.
You were not under the wings of refuge while reading this one.
No, but I am now. I got it.
You get it.
Let's quickly get on to verses 17 through 23, the end of the chapter. So Ruth gathered barley there all day, and then she beat out the grain that evening. It filled an entire basket. She carried it back to town and showed it to her mother-in-law. Ruth also gave her the roasted grain that was left over from her meal, so she brought the leftovers home. Where did you gather all this grain today? Naomi asked. Where did you work? May the Lord bless the one who helped you. So Ruth told her mother-in-law about the man in whose field she had worked. She said, the man I worked with today is named Boaz. May the Lord bless him, Naomi told her daughter-in-law. He is showing his kindness to us as well as to your dead husband. That man is one of our closest relatives, one of our family redeemers. Then Ruth said, what's more, Boaz even told me to come back and stay with his harvesters until the entire harvest is completed. Good, Naomi exclaimed. Do as he said, my daughter. Stay with his young women right through the whole harvest. You might be harassed in other fields, but you'll be safe with him. So Ruth worked alongside the women in Boaz's fields and gathered grain with them until the end of the barley harvest. Then she continued working with them through the wheat harvest in early summer, and all the while she lived with her mother-in-law. Okay, lots of details here real quick. The grain is cut down low to the ground with that sickle. The stalks are tied together in sheaves, these bundles of grain. Why? So that the harvest can be more easily transported, be more efficient, and they are going to take it to the threshing floor. And that's where we find Ruth at day's end. She brings all of her sweepings and all of her gatherings to be threshed. She doesn't have a full sheave. Those would have been carried by the workers or carried by donkeys or carried by oxen, but she's got a lot. Now, there's a slide here, and I don't know if you saw this, Garrett, when we were there. This is not my picture. I have a lousy picture of it from a distance because we didn't stop by there. But I have a picture for you right here of a threshing floor. And I want you to take a look at it. I'm just waiting for it to pop up. All right, great. this is the threshing floor at Bethlehem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does this threshing floor date to the time of Boaz? It's hard to say, but there has been a threshing floor at this location for centuries upon end.
Right. Yeah.
Now, if you look at it, there's a wall, a little stone wall that circles it. Back in the day when it was used, there would have been no vegetation whatsoever growing up in it. It would have been smooth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what would happen is you would bring the sheaves, and imagine that scene right there, just filled with grain all over the floor. You can't even see the floor. It's just those stalks and sheaves of grain untied and spread out flat. And then what they would do, if there was that much of a harvest, is they would let the donkeys or the oxen just walk over it.
Mm-hmm.
Break
that stuff loose.
Crush it all down into pieces. What Ruth would have done would have been to use a flail, a stick. So she would have taken her giant handful and lay it down on one corner of that threshing floor and taken that flail and just the old timers in
beat
my
the tar
family.
out of it.
Yeah, my old timers in my family would say, "I'm going to flail you about the head and shoulders," which meant I'm going to take a stick to your head and beat you to the ground. Which that's what flailing is. And so Ruth would have flailed the barley to the point that everything is pulverized into pieces. The grain is in there, the husk are in there, the broken stalks are in there, the chaff is in there, good Bible word. And then you notice in the text too, it's late in the evening, which is the time to do this. The wind has died down. And she would scoop up that refuse and all of those husks and just toss it into the air. And the wind would blow the chaff away. The grain, the actual seed, is heavier, so it falls.
Drop straight down.
And so after she does that, and this is this winnowing process is a common picture in the Old and New Testaments. Mm-hmm. She would have gathered up the extra grain, and our New Living Translation says that she had enough to fill a basket. The Hebrew
says apaf.
Ephah or ephah is the Hebrew word.
Or epap.
And it's about a bushel. How much is a bushel, young Nebraska man?
I don't know. I didn't grow up on a farm. My NIV study Bible says about 30 pounds, so I'm going to stick with that answer.
32 dry quarts.
Okay, Trebek.
Because I was a future farmer of America.
That explains a lot.
40 years ago. It's a lot.
Do you remember the motto or anything?
Yeah, no, just stop right there.
What happened, future farmer of America?
Oh, my grandmother.
You went to sow your seed elsewhere in the church.
My grandmother was like, "Oh, go run down there and get about a bushel." So you figure it out after a while. It's a lot. Mm-hmm. It's a lot to get your arms around. And this poor girl's got to carry it home. 32 quarts, 8 gallons.
Yeah. Or 30 pounds, according to my NIV study.
Yeah. So of dry weight, yeah.
Yeah, dry.
So she throws it on her back, probably carrying some of it on her head in a basket, like they do. And she would have went home with it. And she's happy about it, but so is Naomi. And she tells the story of her day. Mm. And then she says, I'm going to be working there all the way through the wheat harvest. So she's got a job all the way to summer.
They've got food to last them.
And at this rate, more than enough food. They'll be selling some of that grain shortly. Mm. They actually have a way of making a living.
Right.
And so it's some breathing space. And Naomi is thrilled because Boaz is this kinsman redeemer. We won't get into tonight what that means. We don't have time. We're down to 5 minutes here. We're going to talk about it next week. And I don't think even at this stage that Naomi has this plan in her mind about what to do. But I just love this about Naomi, and this is where I want to leave us tonight. At the end of last week's chapter,
the Lord's
hand, the Lord has raised his fist against me. The Almighty has made me bitter. She's laying all of her troubles at God's feet. And if you would, I think I have one more slide. Verse 20, is that it?
Yep.
This is the New Living Translation that we've read. May the Lord bless him. And she's speaking of Boaz. Naomi told her daughter-in-law. He is showing his kindness to us as well as to your dead husband. Listen to the NIV. The Lord bless him. You see in the NIV, it's all caps there. Mm-hmm. The NIV keeps that. It's Yahweh that we're speaking of, not a generic God. Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, he has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead. Now, keep that slide there. This is what I want you to see. The New Living Translation implies that Naomi is speaking of Boaz for that entire verse. May the Lord bless Boaz. Boaz is showing Boaz's kindness to us as well as to your dead husband. The NIV is being a little more ticklish with it because the Hebrew is ambiguous. I really like the NIV here. The Lord bless Boaz, Naomi said to her daughter-in-law. The Lord has not stopped showing his kindness. Mm-hmm. Is the implication in the NIV. We don't know for sure. I like the latter translation. And either way, even if you take the former translation, Boaz is an extension of God's grace here.
Right.
So it's in the course of one chapter, in the course of just a few weeks, the time it takes for Naomi to leave Moab, make that week-long walk to Bethlehem, settle in, find a place, and then for Ruth to go out and find work. In that short little window of time, Naomi's tune has changed completely. Mm-hmm. She goes from blaming God for everything to this sense that, well, maybe God's grace prevails still. And It's a beautiful transition that takes place in such a short period of time.
When we started this, we had mentioned that, the reason we picked this is because we're like, you had brought the book of Ruth, and we said, well, why exactly is this here? And you're going to see this unfold. Like, this is a literary masterpiece, how it plays out and how it fits in the grand narrative of the Old Testament in Hebrew history.
Oh, the story is just getting cranking.
It's just getting started.
And if you look at Naomi and you say, well, she's sort of an inconsistent old bird. Well, aren't we all?
Yep.
I mean, the scribes, the collectors of this story are genius because it shows if Naomi is anything at all, she is human.
And what's unique about this too, and I know we only have a few minutes, but it's really a lot like this story is a lot like the prodigal son story. And at any point in time, you could show up as one of these characters in the story. You can see yourself. That's what this story does, is you can see yourself in the text as any one of these people. You could be the overseer of the field, or you could be the sickly husband.
I think
it's just incredible.
I think there's some parallels with the story of Joseph. About God meaning it for good, that don't speak too soon. Let the story unfold. Let the story tell itself. It is the story of Israeli and Hebrew exile and return. We'll talk about that later as well. It's the story of the Exodus. Mm-hmm. It's no wonder why it's included. It's just a genius for them to retain this story and how it was a no-brainer when those scholars got together in Egypt hundreds of years before Jesus was born to finalize, even though they didn't really understand that's what they were doing. They were finalizing the Old Testament. Ruth was really never in dispute. Mm-hmm. It had to be. It had to be regarded as scripture. Esther was in dispute. Nehemiah was somewhat in dispute. Malachi was a little bit in dispute because they were older books. But Ruth, or younger books, I should say, the answer is in the story, and the story is still being told. Padre Gotuma. It's exactly right. Man, I love it. I love this book.
Yeah, it's so good.
So next week we will be at chapter 3.
Chapter 3.
We That's all I'm going to say about that. Chapter 3 is really interesting. It has all those biblical customs that we're all going to have to scratch our head and say, what?
Why is that there?
Yeah, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
But you will see in chapter 3, and go ahead and read it in advance, that Boaz's faithfulness and integrity maintains itself, as does Ruth's faithfulness and care and reputation, as does Naomi's toughness. I said Sunday in my talk on the first chapter of Ruth that it looked like Naomi was without hope, but not really. There was still something burning inside of her because she was still moving. She was going home. She was still walking. And in this chapter, you see that, to your Star Wars reference, a new hope is reborn in her. And you're really going to see it in chapter 3, because one thing that hope does is this. It makes us tie our shoes and get moving. Mm-hmm. It doesn't allow us to sit back and play the role of victim. And Naomi, all she has suffered, gets in the game next week. And so we'll talk about that then.
Yeah, and I just, to add one more thing too, like, in reading this story, in finding yourself in the characters, it can speak volumes to our lives here and now. And, for some people, this could be, as we said from the very beginning, hopefully this is something that, gives us assurance that, life is tough, life is hard, it throws as many curveballs.
But the story ain't over.
It's not over. We got to keep rolling with it.
Keep moving.
I love it.
Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it so much. Thanks again, Garrett, for hosting us here. I do have some good news, by the way.
Are you going to share that here?
I'm going to say it right now.
Do it. I'm going to put the camera on you. Go for it.
We've been building a house. We have a tentative close date for the 23rd day of February. So
23rd of February. What's today? The second?
Yeah, 20 days, 3 weeks.
I don't even know.
3 weeks or so. It's the last Friday of February. So
it's sad when I'm going, what day is it?
What day is it?
After a year into this whole thing, it's what day is it?
I'm excited about that. I mean,
what year is it?
I love to come sit in your office, but one day
we'll go in yours.
We'll be back together, but we can do Wednesdays sitting right here in my office eventually. So let's just cross our fingers. You know how closing goes.
I do.
It's never on schedule. It's never on time.
They're always asking for something more.
Oh, tell me about it.
Give me your liver.
Yeah.
Next.
Give me your liver and pay for this appraisal. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see you Sunday at 11 o'clock Central Time streaming, and then right back here next Wednesday. Thanks.